The municipalities were very concerned that if land was declared Indian Reserve, that they would lose the taxes, and how were they going to maintain the municipal services if they didn't have taxation. That issues like that, that on the first blush, you don't think of that when you think of the Indian land entitlement. Oh, it's just give them land, you know. I'm sorry, it's not quite that easy.
And when you have land that's not generating taxes, naturally there's resistance to that. So it had been an outstanding issue, and it you know, caused tension between the RM and the Indian bands that needed this land. So it was long overdue, and you know, we just seemed to run into a situation where we had a federal government that was wanting to resolve it, a provincial government that wanted to resolve it, and certainly Roland Crowe played an integral part in this.
There was a last-minute hitch, and that was the growing concern of the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities, that they could be left without the resources to keep up rural roads if a lot of land got turned into reserves and so on.
So we had clear direction of our membership to become active and do what we thought we could do, namely, and that was to secure some tax loss compensation.
This was going to require a side payment of about $50 million in what was broadly thought of as $1 billion deal. And I recall distinctly the issue of getting hold of that money. It was clear that we had to do something fairly quickly, and it was probably a Friday in Regina. And I was out at the end of the limb, having negotiated away all of my negotiating room. I called the Deputy Minister of Finance in Ottawa, Fred Gorbett, and said, "Fred, I need another $50 million. I said, "But, you know, look, we only got to pay this out over 10 years. You know, this is thistledown, and it's history." And Fred, God bless him, said, yeah, he would back me on this. He would agree to that, and we would fix up the paperwork later.
As land goes into reserve status and out of the tax base, that lump sum payment is made to SCRM with respect to that particular claim. So that money is invested. SARM has various ways of investing, and it's safe. And then every year, an amount comes out of that fund, each specific to each claim, to the respective municipality, equivalent to the current taxes.
It's turned out that it was good negotiations. The fund is in good shape, and a lot of the bands have been adding acres ever since that negotiation finished.
And I think history has shown us that by and large, those issues are moot today. It's something you don't hear about in the media. You don't hear anybody in the Legislative Assembly, and you don't, at the Chiefs' Assemblies, those issues aren't coming up on an ongoing basis. So obviously, time is the best judge of whether you did right or not. And I think, by and large, it's been successful.
Saskatchewan government was very helpful in this. Chief Crowe was out there frustrated and kicking both sides. Come on, you guys, can't you do it? This is the most obvious thing in the world. Get this done. And we finally did.
Premier Devine at the time of 1990, when we were negotiating 1991, was being challenged in his mandate, I think would be appropriate. And I think there was an opportunity. I think we met in Western Diversification's office and talked about the opportunity to leave a legacy. And amongst the other things, this I viewed, and Minister Siddon and Premier Devine viewed it as a positive legacy. And I think that had some influence in the Premier at that time pushing through the legislation.
And the issue for Grant Devine was, I guess, he knew more than we did that the cookie jar was empty, that he had significant financial problems, and we had to talk him into accepting Saskatchewan's share, going back to the Natural Resource Transfer Agreement, and I remember now that Saskatchewan was always felt to have to put up at least 50% of the cost. And by then, Cliff Wright had suggested that we could use money rather than land and let the First Nations decide how to invest the money. It's the greatest benefit. So for Grant Devine, it was the question of could Saskatchewan ante up a portion, and he agreed, to his great credit, to a 70-30 cost-sharing formula.
We wanted to move this thing forward. The government was running out of its mandate. The Premier was adamant that this is something that he wanted done. And I think all of us felt that it was time. It was the right thing to do. We had to move ahead.
From my perspective, as a negotiator, I think looking at it from a provincial perspective, because that's who I was representing, I felt what we had satisfactorily dealt with all of the issues.
It was not a hard sell. First, the federal cash would be paid out over a period on the order of a decade or so, so the fiscal hit was not overwhelming. Second, the ministers were very quick to see that this had an historic quality to it.
There was a receptive mood in Cabinet, but it came down to how big is the price tag for all this.